Hi guys, this is Miss Anderson and this is part 2 of a tutorial on how to use RACER to answer a constructed response. So I don't want this video to be too long, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right in because we have a lot of things to cover. Okay, let's go. So let's review what RACER is, okay? So we know that RACER is a writing strategy and we use it to answer constructed responses. And so the R stands for restate the question, the A stands for answer the question, the C, cite the evidence from the passage to support your answer, E, explain that evidence and your reasons why. And then R is review all of the points that you made and then summarize. Okay, so very quickly, I want to make sure that we clarify the difference between a constructed response and a summary, okay? They are both very similar, but they do have some differences, okay? So when we talk about a constructive response, this is usually when you are asked to write something after you have read something. And so that is called a writing prompt, okay? So a writing prompt is, and it's usually on an assessment or on a test, okay? You're asked to read one or two passages and then you are asked to explain or inform, okay? So that's what a constructed response is. And so in your constructed response, you're going to include reasons and you're going to include citations from the text. And that's when you would use the writing strategy RACER. Now, a summary, on the other hand, so sometimes a constructed response can summarize, but most of the times a summary is perhaps when we have read something fictional, like a story or something like that. And if it is informational text, like, for example, we are reading the ReadWorks articles, okay, we can summarize when we answer the question, what did you learn from this passage, okay? So a summary is going to answer what was learned, okay? It's only going to capture the main points and not the details. And it usually includes the who, what, when, where, and why in a passage, okay? And so then the two strategies that we use to summarize are what's the gist, GIST, and then the SWBST, which is somebody wanted but so then. Okay? So that's the difference between a constructed response and a summary. And you have to know which one you're doing, and it's pretty much based upon what you are asked to do. Are you asked to just write a summary, or are you asked to explain something after you have read a passage or two? Okay? Now, another thing that I wanted to share or talk about very quickly before we move into examining some constructed responses is when you are reading a text, especially an informational text, you must know or you must figure out or ascertain or understand what is the text structure of that passage, okay? And so there are several different types of text structures, and these that I have pictured are the main ones. And so while you're reading, remember I told you that good readers are doing something called metacognitive strategies, and that means they are thinking and reading at the same time, okay? So good readers are doing that, okay? So while you're reading, one of the things that you are doing is trying to determine what is the text structure. When you determine that, it helps you fully understand what you have read, okay? And so I'll just go over these briefly, but we will go over these in class, okay? So you'll know when you're reading a descriptive text because it will be describing something, telling about it, the past, the present, the future, describing it, all of those things, okay? So that is a descriptive text, okay? Some texts can be a problem and solution where they present a problem and then give several solutions, for example, okay? And then another type of text is compare and contrast, okay, where they are contrasting one thing to another. Another type of text is cause and effect, okay, where we have something that causes something, and then the effects of what resulted from that cause. And then another type of text structure is sequential, okay, where things go in a sequence, like first, second, or third. So I only mention these because when you are reading a passage, you have to understand what type of text structure it is. That helps you understand the text. And in order for you to answer a writing prompt that uses the RACER strategy, you have to have understood what you have read. If you understand what you have read, then you must understand what the directions are asking you to do in that writing prompt. So you must, text structures, okay? You must understand the type of text that you have read, okay? Let's keep going. Okay, so remember back from our first video from part one, we had this example passage titled The Florida Manatee, and then we had our graphic organizer to use the RACER strategy with, okay? So I'm going to very quickly read the Florida Manatee because we do need to refresh ourselves, okay? And then we can move on to the graphic organizer. Okay, very quickly, the Florida Manatee. Manatees are slow-moving, friendly mammals. There are three different types of manatees. The Florida manatee is a type of manatee that lives in the shallow rivers and bays on the coastline of Florida. These gentle giants are herbivores and eat aquatic plants. Most adult manatees weigh between 1,000 and 3,000 pounds. Most manatees are very friendly and love people. Unfortunately, though, people are manatees' largest threat. Because of pollution, boating incidents, and loss of habitat, Florida manatees have become endangered. Boat collisions have killed many manatees in Florida because they swim through the water very slowly. When a boat approaches, a manatee may have very little or no time to escape the passing boat. Pollution has also led to the endangerment of these mammals. Just like dolphins and sea turtles, manatees can easily get themselves entangled in fishing lines and nets while feeding and swimming through the water. Fishermen's hooks, fishing lines, and nets get lost in the water after getting entangled in aquatic plants that the manatees feed on. Manatees can choke on these hooks and fishing line. The Florida manatee has also become endangered because of their loss of habitat. Humans are developing waterfront homes, communities, and other buildings that have taken away from the manatee's shallow water habitat and food supply. Many dedicated organizations have been established to help manatees survive. Many people and organizations in Florida have created conservation areas and laws to help preserve the lives of these gentle giants. Okay, so we have that is the passage there, okay? And I went ahead and underlined because we know that our writing prompt is going to be to explain one reason why the manatees in Florida are endangered, okay? And so I underlined the three reasons in the passage: pollution, boating incidents, and loss of habitat. I also went ahead and matched and underlined the explanation of those three reasons, okay? So for boating incidents, they've killed manatees because the manatees are slow and they don't have time to move out the way when a boat approaches. Pollution, the manatees get themselves entangled in fishing lines and nets and stuff like that. And then the third one was the loss of habitat, where humans are building waterfront homes, okay? So that is the passage in and of itself, okay? And so I'm going ahead and filling out the RACER graphic organizer, okay, because this is what we wrote, or what an example of how to write a RACER constructed response. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, I'll get back on track. So this, the RACER question, or the writing prompt, I should say, was explain one reason why the manatees in Florida are endangered. And this is an example, okay? Okay, so when I say example, and I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide, okay? So when I say that that was an example means that that is something that you use to base your writing on. It is not something that you copy word for word, okay? An example or a model is what you use to get an idea to use in your own writing, okay? And I think students can get confused about what an example is, okay? So you have a brain, you have a mind, you have words in your head. And so the example is not meant for you to copy word for word, okay? Because that's the words coming from someone else, all right? So I want you to use an example as a foundation of where to go or how to start your writing. You are never to use an example and just copy it word for word. That's not the purpose of an example. Okay, so we have some student responses, okay, giving one more example of how manatees are becoming endangered, and we're going to look at those, and I'm going to give some feedback, and I want you to be thinking specifically about your response, okay? It's good for you to be looking at your response as you are watching this video, okay? And then start implementing some of those things in your response, okay? All right, so but before we do, here's some things that I am actually looking for when I read these responses, okay? So I am looking to see if the directions were followed. For example, the direction said explain one reason why manatees are becoming endangered. So in your response, you're only supposed to talk about one of those reasons. And we already said that you could not use the reason that was already stated, which was pollution, I think. So the other two reasons that you could use were the boating incidents or the loss of habitat. So make sure you follow the directions when you get a writing prompt. I'm going to be checking if you understood the passage, okay? And I'll show you what that looks like when a person didn't really understand the passage. I'm checking for, did you use adjectives and descriptive words in your response, okay? Did you read aloud each sentence after you wrote it, okay? You must, good writers always read aloud what they write, because that's how you can hear grammar errors in your writing, okay? You cannot hear grammar writings if you read it silently to yourself. Now, if you are not rereading what you write, okay, then you are making a serious error in writing, okay? One of the biggest parts of writing is rereading what you wrote, okay? So you must, and that's going to be in my tutorial called the writing process, okay? But the writing process says that you must reread everything that you write, okay? That's when you hear grammar errors, okay? And I'm going to show you what that looks like when we look at some responses here. Then, was the writing creative and original? Okay, creative and original means, did you copy it word from the example, or did you use your own words? Okay, and then checking for spelling and punctuation. Come on, guys, that's elementary. All right. Spelling, when we read, we memorize the spelling of words, okay? So incorrectly spelling words is just lazy brain, okay? And then punctuation. Now, okay, so I granted this is a draft of your writing because we are going to rewrite it. So I'm not, I don't know. I'm a big stickler on punctuation. I'm sorry. You do not have to be on your final draft to punctuate. Okay, so I am probably going to point out some punctuation and capitalization. But let's go, because remember, I don't want this video to be too long. If you want to, this is a good time right here because we've taken in a lot. You can go ahead and pause it. Okay. And then it would even be a good idea to re-listen to the first part of this video, okay, before moving on. And then coming back, and let's move on to the second part. Okay, so here are two examples, all right, um, of the response from the writing prompt, okay? And so let's see, I have my pen here. Yes, okay. So I'm going to read these to you, and we're going to go through the checklist if this includes a R, A, C, and ER, okay? All right, so the passage or the response on the left. The Florida manatees are endangered, okay? That's the first sentence, all right? Now, if you remember correctly, that's the first sentence on the example. So was there any originality? Was this writer being creative? No, they were not, okay? So a way you could have said that, okay, you could have used, like in the passage, it says Florida manatees are very, very friendly, okay? They are slow moving and friendly mammals. So you could have started your response off like that. You could have said, did you know, and you can ask a question, did you know that the Florida manatees are becoming endangered? Okay, you can ask a question, or you could say something like, um, did you know that manatees are very friendly mammals and they live in Florida? So it's just a matter of being creative, okay? There's no way I could list for you every possible way to begin a sentence, okay? But when you restate the question, okay, if you want to, you can give some information before you restate the question, okay? Now, manatees are mammals. Okay. I mean, they are very friendly and they are very big and longest. Okay, that is what we call a run-on sentence. Okay, a run-on sentence means it's not a complete thought. Okay, so I'm not sure. I know they were talking about manatees, but because they go on to say manatees are herbivores, they are three types of manatees. The manatees are in pollutions because manatees live in rivers and their boats and their okay, so this person did not reread this back in their head. Okay, so we write as we think. Okay, but when we finish writing a sentence, we have to go back and read it out loud. And if you were to read this out loud, as you can see, we wouldn't be able to understand it, okay? So we're going to move on to the next one because this writer here definitely needs to rewrite that response, okay? And they need to just try to capture one sentence at a time. All right, so let's go over to the the response on the right, okay? So I'm going to try to read it, okay? So explain one reason why manatees in Florida are endangered. Use evidence from the text to support your answer. All right, they're getting endangered because when a boat passes by, they can kill the manatees. Okay, that would be okay as a thought, but did he restate the question? No, he didn't restate the question. He's answering the question. They are getting endangered. Restating the question means you're going to say something like, one of the many reasons why the Florida manatees are becoming endangered is because they can get killed by passing boats. Okay, and then you go on to cite the evidence. According to the passage, it says that manatees are very slow moving mammals. And when a boat approaches, the manatees do not have enough time to get out of the way. So do you see the difference between if you don't restate the question? Okay, so he started this sentence off with there. Now, first of all, it's not there, it's they are. Okay, then I circled it because there's no capitalization there. Okay, and then in the second sentence, he says, so they can't run away. All right, so these are manatees, these are mammals that swim, they don't run. Okay, so word choice is important. Okay. So as you can see down here in the checklist, I circled the R because he had not restated the question, he or she, I don't know whose this was, okay? Then he answered the question and he gave a little bit of evidence from the text, but he did not explain it, nor did he restate it, okay? So that's an example that needs some more work, okay? So look at yours and then see if any of these fits your example. Let's move on and take a look at a couple of more. Okay, so let's start with the one on the left-hand side, okay? I'm going to read it out loud and then look at the checklist first. So we have circled the R and the A and the second R. So this passage has the C and the E. So see if you can figure out what's missing with the R, the A, and the other R. All right, the pollution, boating incidents, and loss of habitat. Florida manatees have come endangered. When a boat approaches, a manatee may have very little or no time to escape the passing boat. Pollution also led to the endangerment of these mammals. The Florida manatees are friendly and love people, but people are harming them, of not taking care of them, and people are I'm drawing. Okay, that's supposed to be throwing trash. I can relate. People are leaving their trash and they don't care. The animals, they just eat it and they get sick and die. And people also doing that in the take, and it's so sad to see that. Okay, so this response went a little bit off the chain, okay? So it didn't stick to the checklist, okay? So, okay, so you see where I have that number one, the Florida manatees are friendly and love people. That's the sentence that should have been at the beginning, okay? Then I have the number two, but people are harming them by not taking care of them. That should have been sentence number two. And then he was supposed to have restated the question. There are many reasons why manatees are becoming endangered, but one of those reasons is. So in your response, guys, you're only supposed to talk about, because this is where understanding the passage and understanding the writing prompt comes in. You're only supposed to answer one reason. So you're not supposed to give all three reasons in your response, okay? Explain why one reason, okay? So he didn't answer the question and he didn't restate the question, okay? There's good information in here, but it's not written correctly, okay? Now, he did explain it, although his explanations were a bit narrative or opinionated, I should say, and you're supposed to leave opinions out of a explanation, okay? But he did not restate the question, or at the end, this is one of the reasons why the Florida manatees are becoming endangered, okay? So this one, the rewriting that would be needed is to restate the question, to answer the question, then cite the evidence, then explain the evidence, and then restate the answer. Okay, let's look at the response on the right, okay? I can barely read this, but I'm going to try. Florida manatees, I'm going to guess that's are in danger. One reason is because of their loss of habitat. In the text, it says that humans are developing waterfront homes communities and other buildings that have taken away from the manatee's shallow water habitat and food supply. This indicates that humans need to be more careful. All right, so this person, I'm not sure what they were thinking, okay, but they obviously did not or still does not understand what the purpose of what they are doing, okay? The purpose in what you're doing is giving an explanation, because it says it in the writing prompt. It says, explain one reason why manatees in Florida are endangered. And the RACER is how you explain that in order for it to make sense to the reader, okay? So, Florida manatees are in danger. Okay, so a better way to write that, if you're going to use the exact same example that was given, is you could have said, did you know the Florida manatees are becoming endangered? Okay, that could have been a question. And then you could have said, one of the reasons why these friendly, slow-moving mammals are becoming endangered is because of the loss of their habitat. So that's the way you would write that second sentence to answer that question. And then you could say, according to the text, humans are developing waterfront homes. And then I added here on the ocean front or on the coastline where the manatees live. And then you explain that. When people develop homes on the ocean front, this takes away from the habitat of the manatees. This also takes away the aquatic plants that the manatees feed on for their lives. As a result, when people build homes on the ocean front, it takes away from the homes that the manatees live and the food in which they depend on. This is one of the reasons why manatees, the Florida manatee, are becoming endangered. So I would suggest, guys, that you write it out in your mind first, okay? Think it out in your mind. If you can do that, then writing it would probably help it flow a lot better, okay? But you gotta, and we evidently are going to practice this, okay? So we are going to do some practice in class. But think about what I just said, okay? Stop the video, and rewind it, and then listen to that response that I just gave you, and then possibly write it down, okay? Let's go on to the next response, okay? Because I think I have two more to go. Okay, so let's look at the one on the left. The Florida manatees are endangered. Okay, so we need some more originality there. All right. One of these reasons is pollution. Okay, so that sentence needs some work, okay? One of these reasons, what reasons? We don't know what reasons so that's the whole purpose here, guys. Unless the reader has read the original passage, your response needs to be written if they have not. So that's why we would say one of the reasons why manatees are becoming endangered is because of pollution. So that's the way we would write that sentence in order to tell the reader that they don't need to know all of the reasons. They just need to know the one that we are about to tell them. In passage 3, and I think that's supposed to mean in paragraph 3. So in paragraph 3, it explains that manatees can easily get themselves entangled in fishing lines and nets while feeding and swimming through, okay, remember spelling, the water. This means that fishermen's hooks, fishing lines, and nets get lost in the water and the manatees can choke, okay? So we want to put at the end of that choke and die, okay? And then there's no explanation. So you cited the text, okay? This means that fishermen hooks. So what happens after they choke and die? You want to give something else after that, okay? Then you want to say something like, if because we're talking about pollution here, if there are too many fishermen hooks, then manatees can possibly die at alarming rates, okay? In conclusion, pollution or polluting the waters where manatees live is one reason that the manatees and other aquatic animals like sea turtles or dolphins can die, and they can die every day. Okay, so if you read that aloud and you want to be creative and descriptive, okay, then you can add more to that. You can always remember your first draft is just that, it's your first draft, okay? All right, let's move on to the one on the right. The Florida manatee is a mammal, are endangered. The Florida manatee are endangered for many reasons. One of these is because boating incidents. One of these, okay. So I think we can rewrite that one as well. Okay, I'm gonna move on because I want to wrap up. Okay. Okay, so I gave you some examples or we went over some example responses, and I gave you some feedback. Okay. Now, if you have specific questions on your example, okay, if you can't clearly see the RACER, okay, remember you need to think these sentences in your mind before you start writing, okay? That is part of the writing process, okay? And then you need to read aloud each sentence, okay? All right, but we're going to rewrite it. Okay, so we're going to make it better because that was the whole title of this tutorial, is to take what we have written and now make it better. Okay, so we have our draft, and our drafts are good, okay, because we're in the vicinity. All right, now we just got to clean it up. Okay, so here's some things that I want you to make sure that you do. Follow the directions. If the directions say only give one reason, then only focus on one reason. Use adjectives and descriptive words, okay? Adjectives are words that describe, okay? Read aloud each sentence to yourself. Read it out loud, not to yourself, because that's when you hear when the sentence doesn't make sense, okay? Be creative. Do not write word for word what I have written or what the model says or what the example says. Be original, okay? Think of fun ways to add interest to your writing. And then please check for spelling, capitalization, and punctuation, okay? All right, guys. So the next tutorial is going to discuss editing, okay? Hopefully after we write this next draft, okay, we have cleaned it up a little bit and it looks good. Then we're going to focus on editing and peer editing and then publishing. So we're going to rewrite it again. And then after we edit and peer edit, then we are going to type it up in Microsoft Word. That's going to be our publishing, and you will send it to me. So that's what the next video is going to discuss. Okay, guys, thank you for hanging out with me. This video did go a little ways, but I hope it was helpful. I hope I will be able to see a difference in your writing, and I will see you in class, okay? Anderson out. Bye, guys.